Welcome on board, Chosen One. You feel that shift, don't you? The air is different around you now. The universe went quiet for a moment, like it paused to watch you rise, and every person who once underestimated you suddenly forgot how to breathe. Funny how that works. They ran their mouths when they thought you were harmless, but look who's flinching now. Look who's avoiding eye contact. Look who can't even speak your name without their voice shaking a little. "What happened to them?" they whisper. "Why does their energy feel so heavy now?" Because you stopped playing small. You stopped sitting quietly while they played hero in the story of your downfall. You stopped letting their little comments shape your identity. The version of you they abused is gone, and the one standing here now scares the life out of them. And honestly, they should be scared. Before I go further, pay this message back. Hit the like button and subscribe, because this mission only gets stronger when you're here. Now, back to the mess you came out of. They swore you'd always be the one waiting. They swore you'd always bend. They swore they understood your limits because you used to let them get away with murder and call it a misunderstanding. But the universe flipped the script behind their backs. One day you woke up with that look in your eyes, that quiet resolve that said, "Try me again and you'll regret it." No threats, no theatrics, just pure, terrifying certainty. And that's the moment their loyalty started shaking. Watch the pattern. It always goes the same way for chosen ones. First, they laugh at you, then they ignore you, then they try to embarrass you, then they pretend you don't matter. And then, out of nowhere, they switch sides so fast it gives them whiplash. Because nothing is more frightening than someone who survives what should have destroyed them. Nothing is more humiliating for an enemy than realizing they judged the wrong person. Nothing is more embarrassing than watching the weak one walk out of the battlefield with calm eyes and an unbothered attitude while they're still trying to wipe the dirt off their reputation. Press that like button and subscribe if you haven't already, Chosen One. You being here strengthens this entire movement. Let me tell you something they'll never admit. They never thought you'd heal. They never thought you'd outgrow them. They never thought you'd get that glow they secretly prayed you'd never find. But the universe is petty sometimes. It likes to embarrass people by blessing the exact person they tried to bury. And that's what happened to you. Your energy sharpened, your awareness got dangerous, your silence got intelligent. You started moving like someone who knows their worth, not someone begging for crumbs. Remember the person who ghosted you? The one who swore you were too much, not enough, or inconvenient. They're checking your profile more than their own reflection. Now, remember the friend who switched up the moment you needed them. They're replaying how they treated you like a bad movie scene that keeps haunting them. Remember the family member who doubted your potential. They're suddenly talking about you with weird admiration, pretending they always supported you. And what about those people who used to brag about walking away from you? Look where they are now. Look at them circling back, speaking softly, pretending they didn't burn the bridge while dancing on it. Hey, I've been thinking about how they misjudged you so badly that even the universe had to intervene. Thinking about how the tables turned so dramatically it made their ego fracture. The universe watched you get disrespected, misunderstood, and underestimated. It watched you break in private, rebuild in silence, and rise without an audience, and now it's collecting the debts on your behalf. Every shift you feel, every sudden apology, every awkward reunion, every anxious glance, it's all karma doing laps around the people who thought your spirit was disposable. Let me take you back for a moment. There was a time when you would have forgiven anyone just to keep the peace. A time when you explained yourself to people who had no intention of understanding you. A time when you tolerated disrespect just to avoid being alone. But look at you now, standing in the aftermath of everything meant to ruin you, calm as if the war was a training exercise. You didn't get here by luck. You got here by endurance. You got here by choosing yourself. You got here by removing access from people who treated your presence like a discount. And the universe rewarded you with something they never expected. Power. Real, silent, unsettling power. And that's why they're switching sides now. Not because they've changed, not because they suddenly love you, not because they see your value now, but because your energy exposes their lies, your confidence exposes their insecurities, your strength exposes their weakness. You scare them, chosen one, not with threats, not with revenge, just with truth. And nothing terrifies an enemy more than someone who finally sees clearly. Welcome on board. The real story begins now. And listen up, chosen one. Yeah, you. The one whose energy made half your enemies switch sides so fast they practically sprained their loyalty. Before we go any deeper into this unraveling of truth, drop a comment with 999 if you're ready to own this new reality where your presence bends the room and your silence triggers confessions. Consider it your signature, your mark, your quiet way of saying, "I'm not hiding anymore." This next part goes even darker, even sharper, and if your spirit really is as upgraded as the universe claims, you'll feel that magnetic pull to stay until the final line. Every piece of what comes next is designed to expose what they never wanted you to see, and to remind you why they're switching sides now that your energy hit a level they can't defend against. Now, let's step into the truth, piece by piece. Number 1. When you stopped playing their little game. Funny how the whole room collapses when the star of the show stops performing? They never expected you to walk off their stage. They never thought you'd drop the mask they forced you to wear. They were so sure you'd keep dancing for their approval, bending for their comfort, shrinking for their insecurities. That's why the shock on their faces is priceless now. The day you stopped performing was the day their entire illusion shattered, and it shattered so loudly that even the universe paused to watch the fallout. They loved you most when you were exhausted. They praised you most when you were quiet. They valued you most when you were breaking your back to keep their world together. But the second you stopped, the second you pulled your energy back into your own chest, everything flipped. The power shifted. Suddenly, the same people who treated you like background noise started panicking like you were the missing piece that kept their whole identity from collapsing. And honestly, you were. You're probably wondering why their reactions are this dramatic, why they're circling back, why they suddenly want closure, clarity, and one last conversation after acting like you were replaceable. The answer is simple. You were never replaceable. They just convinced themselves you were because it made their ego feel safer. Your presence was their emotional oxygen, and they never imagined they'd have to breathe without you. So when you unplugged, when you went silent, when you refused to be their entertainment, their therapist, their emotional buffet, the withdrawal hit them so violently they didn't know whether to cry, run, or chase. What they don't want you to know is this: you were the calm in their chaos, the structure in their instability, the backbone of every connection they had with you. They thought they were the ones holding the power. They thought you needed them more. They thought you'd always show up, no matter how they treated you. But the moment you stopped performing, they saw the truth. They were addicted to you, not the other way around. And that's why they're switching sides now. That's why they're acting confused. That's why their stories don't add up. When you withdrew your energy, you exposed their dependency. You revealed how much of their identity was built on controlling you, on seeing you predictable, on watching you crumble so they could feel superior. They can't tell you this out loud, but your silence is the loudest thing they've ever heard. It's louder than your explanations, louder than your apologies, louder than every moment you begged them to understand you. The question probably floating around your mind right now is, why is my silence suddenly so powerful? Because silence is the moment the mask drops. Silence is the moment the roles flip. Silence is the moment you reclaim every piece of yourself they thought belonged to them. When you stopped performing, you took back the one thing they could never handle losing: access. Access to your time, access to your attention, access to your heart, access to your vulnerability, access to your emotional labor, access to your loyalty, access to your presence. And without access, they have nothing. Think back. How many times did they act bored when you told your truth? How many times did they pretend they didn't hear you? How many times did they treat your kindness like a discount and your love like a spare option? They thought they were untouchable because you were always the one giving. So when you stopped giving, you exposed who the real provider was. You exposed the source of the connection. You exposed the fact that they were only strong because you kept holding their world together behind the scenes. That's why they're scrambling now. That's why they're watching you like they're studying a crime scene, trying to figure out what went wrong. That's why they're replaying every memory, every message, every moment, trying to spot the exact second they lost you. They don't want to admit it, but they know they lost you when you stopped performing for people who didn't deserve the show. Let me give you a metaphor they'll hate. When you stop feeding someone who took your generosity for granted, you don't just starve their ego. You expose its size, and theirs was gigantic. You shrinking yourself was their favorite meal. Your insecurities were their backup plan. Your self-sacrifice was their safety net. But you burned the net, you starved the ego. You stopped feeding the beast. And now they're trembling. Now they're confused. Now they're studying you the way a scientist studies something dangerous, trying to understand how it changed overnight. They're terrified because they can't predict you anymore. They can't anticipate your reactions. They can't manipulate your emotions. They can't guilt trip you into staying. They can't breadcrumb you back into submission. You became unpredictable. And unpredictable people make cowards shake. But here's the part that hits hardest. You didn't stop performing out of anger. You stopped because you evolved. You outgrew the version of yourself that tolerated their nonsense. You outgrew the cycle. You outgrew the room. And when you outgrow a room, everything in it starts to look small, childish, and beneath you. You became the villain in their story the moment you chose yourself. Isn't it funny? When you were giving them everything, you were the angel. The moment you set boundaries, suddenly you're the villain. That tells you everything about their intentions. Your silence wasn't rejection, it was elevation. Your withdrawal wasn't punishment, it was protection. Your absence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. The universe didn't make you pull back for no reason. It pushed you into isolation so you could see the truth without the noise of their manipulation. And once you saw the truth, returning to their version of you became impossible. So here you stand, unbothered, unchained, unapologetic, and look at how fast they switch sides. Look at how fast they run back. Look at how fast they panic. Look at how fast they fall apart, now that the energy they thought they owned has been reclaimed by its rightful master. They're scared of you, chosen one, not because you're cruel, not because you're vengeful, but because you finally chose power over performance. And that's the moment everything changed. Number 2, when your absence turned into their nightmare. People don't notice the sun until they're trapped in the cold. Funny how they called you replaceable, yet nothing replaced you. A void is louder than any goodbye. Losing you didn't break them, it revealed them. They thought you walking away would be quiet. They thought your absence would be soft, like background noise fading. They thought life would hum along normally without you, because in their delusion, they convinced themselves you were just another person, just another face in their crowded world. But the universe has a wicked sense of humor. It loves exposing lies, especially the lies people tell themselves to avoid facing how much you mattered. So when you disappeared, when you pulled your energy back into your own gravity, that's when their whole reality cracked. That's when the truth punched them in the face, because the moment you were gone, the room felt wrong. The air felt heavier. Their days felt strangely incomplete. What they thought was insignificant suddenly felt like losing a limb, and they don't want to admit it. But they're grieving someone who's still alive. They're calling it weird, random, unexpected. But let's not sugarcoat it. It's a void, a massive, echoing void, shaped exactly like you. And what hurts their ego the most is that the void was created simply by your absence. Not revenge, not pettiness, not drama. Just you taking your energy and going home. You're probably wondering, why does my absence hit harder than my presence ever did? Because presence can be ignored, but a void cannot. Presence is expected. A void exposes everything. Presence is taken for granted. A void forces reflection. Imagine this. Someone has a lamp in their room that's always on. They never appreciate it. They never look at it. They don't even check if the bulb is working. But the moment the lamp goes out, the whole room collapses into darkness. Suddenly every movement gets harder. Every shadow feels threatening. Every corner feels unfamiliar. That's what your absence did. You were the light, and they didn't realize it until the switch flipped. Imagine this. They thought their life was a puzzle and you were just an extra piece. But once you left, they saw the whole. The empty space that throws the whole picture off. Now they're staring at that incomplete puzzle, pretending they've got everything together, but the missing piece is glaring back at them like a neon sign. Imagine this. They once fed off your energy like plants leaning toward the sun. Your attention, your presence, your support. Everything nourished them. But plants don't realize they need sunlight until someone pulls the blinds shut. Now they're wilted, confused, reaching out, desperate for even a flicker of your warmth. That's the void you left behind. It's not poetic, it's not symbolic, it's practical reality. Their jokes don't land the same without your laugh. Their drama doesn't feel manageable without your advice. Their wins don't feel real without your validation. Their confidence doesn't feel stable without your presence in the room. You weren't just someone they talked to. You were someone who made their life function. And now, every corner of their day reminds them of you. Every silence feels like you. Every moment of uncertainty echoes your name. Every reminder of what they lost hits them in the stomach like a brick. But why now? Why all at once, you might ask? Because the universe has perfect timing. It waits until your enemies get comfortable. It waits until they think they've upgraded. It waits until they're convinced you're irrelevant. Then it pulls the rug from under them. Now they're face to face with the truth they ran from. You were the foundation they built their ego on. Not the accessory, not the sidekick, not the background character, the foundation. And without the foundation, the building doesn't just shake, it collapses. Let's go deeper. They're replaying old conversations, old messages, old memories like forensic detectives. They're scanning your old words, trying to figure out the exact second they lost you. They're analyzing your silence like it's a code they can crack. They're rereading texts where you were kind, patient, and giving, because those texts are starting to feel like artifacts from a world they destroyed with their own hands. They're realizing in real time that nobody else celebrates them like you did. Nobody else listens like you did. Nobody else understands their weird quirks like you did. Nobody else stays consistent like you did. Nobody else gives as selflessly as you did. And this realization is tearing them apart. What's even funnier? They went out searching for someone better, someone more exciting, someone who matched their fantasy. But the universe doesn't hand out replacements for chosen ones. They found temporary attachments, cheap imitations, hollow connections dressed up as upgrades. They got distracted by shiny, empty souls who had nothing to offer beyond surface appeal. Meanwhile, your absence, it aged like wine. It grew heavier. It grew louder, it grew undeniable. They're noticing it everywhere, in the silence after a long day, in the lack of depth in new connections, in the way nobody checks on them the way you did, in the way nobody listens without judgment, in the way nobody actually cares. They thought you were just someone. But the truth? You were the glue that held entire parts of their life together. Your voice calmed them. Your encouragement kept them going. Your perspective saved them from bad choices. Your presence grounded them. Your authenticity inspired them. And now that all of that is gone, their world feels off balance. Their emotions feel unstable. Their confidence feels fake. Their connections feel shallow. You left a void so big, it's become a mirror forcing them to see who they are without you. And spoiler, they don't like that version of themselves. You were their anchor, but they treated you like an option. You were the stability they pretended not to need. You were the loyalty they thought would always be there. You were the energy they drained like it was infinite. They gambled with the only person who actually showed up for them, and the universe made sure they lost. Here's the truth they choke on every night. They didn't replace you. They replaced the illusion that you were easy to lose. They replaced their delusion that they could do better. They replaced their arrogance with regret. Because the void you left behind, it doesn't fade. It grows, it echoes, it haunts. And that haunting is not your responsibility. It's their consequence. You didn't leave a gap. You left a crater. You didn't leave silence. You left a haunting soundtrack. You didn't leave absence. You left undeniable proof of your worth. And the universe is making sure they feel every inch of it. So stand tall, chosen one. Their regret isn't your victory. Your evolution is. Their emptiness isn't your revenge. Your transformation is. Their sleepless nights aren't your problem. Your energy leveled up. This isn't just the void you left behind. This is the legacy of your absence, and it's louder than anything you ever said. Number 3, when your upgrade happened off-screen. They thought you disappeared. You were upgrading. Silence isn't weakness, it's evolution sharpening its teeth. The version of you they hurt does not exist anymore. Here's the part that really rattles their bones. You didn't evolve in front of them. You didn't post updates. You didn't warn anyone. You didn't give hints. You didn't drop clues. You vanished from their storyline like a plot twist that nobody saw coming, and while they were busy thinking you were broken, sad, or waiting, you were outgrowing every damn strategy they once used against you. And it's funny, isn't it? They expected you to crumble. They expected you to beg. They expected you to orbit around their validation like some loyal satellite. But the universe grabbed you by the collar and dragged you into your evolution quietly, privately, ruthlessly. No applause, no witnesses, just you, your pain, and your transformation. Imagine this: a snake sheds its skin in silence. Nobody hears it, nobody celebrates it. But when it emerges, it looks like a different creature entirely. That's you. You didn't change. You upgraded your entire operating system. They're confused because the old tactics don't work anymore. They can't guilt trip you. They can't lure you back with nostalgia. They can't weaponize your empathy. They can't sweet-talk their way into your walls. They're knocking on a door that no longer exists. And you're probably wondering, why do they act so shocked? Why are they returning like nothing happened? Why do they look stunned when I don't respond the way I used to? Because they expected continuity, not evolution. They expected to find the same version of you they once manipulated. They expected to see the same softness they abused, but the universe made sure that softness grew armor. They're coming back with apologies, expecting the old you. But the old you died in the silence they misinterpreted. They're coming back with excuses, but excuses don't work on someone who finally sees the truth. They're coming back with flowers, but flowers don't matter when the forest already caught fire and burned everything false to ash. Here's the part they'll never admit: your evolution threatens them. Not because you're dangerous, but because you are no longer accessible. You operate on a frequency their ego can't reach, their manipulation can't decode, and their intentions can't pollute. You evolved in silence. And now that silence is the loudest thing they've ever heard. Number 4. When your calm became their personal apocalypse. Silence is scary, but peace is a declaration of war without saying a word. Nothing haunts a guilty soul harder than the person who stopped reacting. Your calm wasn't healing, it was closure delivered with a smirk. When you stopped caring, their whole game board flipped. Let's get brutally honest. Your peace did more damage than your anger ever could. Rage they could handle, tears they could manipulate, arguments they could twist. But peace, that's a language their ego was never built to survive. Your peace was the moment the universe placed a mirror in front of them and said, "Look at what you've done, and look at who walked away untouched." And the worst part? You didn't announce it. You didn't post it. You didn't broadcast it like they expected. You just became it. Imagine this: a battlefield goes silent. No swords, no screams, just the sound of wind moving through abandoned armor. That was your peace. It wasn't passive, it wasn't delicate. It was the kind of stillness that says, "I'm done entertaining chaos." They didn't expect that. They expected you to collapse under the weight of what they did. Instead, you stood up straighter. Imagine this: a phone that never rings back, a message that never gets delivered, a presence that can no longer be summoned. Your peace became the locked door they can't kick down, the password they can't guess, the version of you they can't reach. And trust me, they're trying. Quietly, secretly, obsessively. You're probably asking yourself, why does my peace bother them more than my anger ever did? Because your anger kept them relevant. It meant they still had influence. Your peace, it means they lost their grip entirely. Your calm wasn't a phase, it was your evolution. It told them you don't matter anymore without needing to speak a single syllable. And the way you moved on, that's what pushed them over the edge. No revenge plots, no dramatic exits, no public call-outs. You just left. You just detached. You just reclaimed yourself like it was the easiest thing in the world. Meanwhile, they were refreshing your profile, stalking your glow-up, analyzing your silence like detectives desperate for a clue. Your peace was terrifying because it told the truth. You don't need them. You don't want them. You don't think about them. That psychological earthquake forced them to switch sides. The respect they withheld suddenly returned. The loyalty they denied suddenly reappeared. The apologies they never planned to give suddenly started drafting themselves in their mind. But it's too late. Your peace isn't negotiable. Your calm isn't accidental. Your energy isn't accessible. And the universe made sure they felt that loss like a cold slap across the soul. Your peace wasn't the end, chosen one. It was the beginning of their downfall. Number 5, when their control panel went up in flames. Control isn't real power. Real power is watching someone walk away from your influence like it was never real to begin with. Nothing destroys a manipulator faster than a target who stops reacting. The moment you healed, their whole system crashed. You weren't breaking, you were breaking free. Here's where the universe handed them their karma with a velvet glove. Their entire identity was built on the illusion that they had control over you. They needed you predictable. They needed you emotionally accessible. They needed you waiting, hurting, spiraling, checking your phone, replaying their words, doubting yourself, chasing their validation like crumbs dropped from an ego-inflated banquet table. That was their ecosystem. That was their comfort zone. That was the fantasy that kept them feeling important. Then you destroyed the system, silently, effortlessly, brutally. Imagine this. A puppeteer gets ready to tug the strings, only to realize the puppet has stepped off the stage and walked out the door. That's what you did. You didn't warn them. You didn't argue. You didn't collapse dramatically. You just broke the strings they used to control your reactions. And when the strings snapped, so did their pride. Imagine this. A gamer loading up their favorite game, only to find the console corrupted, the save files deleted, the character gone. That's what it felt like when you stopped playing your role in their twisted storyline. They tried to reboot it, restart it, reinstall it. No luck. You're not in their game anymore. You're probably thinking, why are they acting so confused? Why are they suddenly panicking? Why do they look at me like I changed overnight? Because they genuinely believed they had power over you. They mistook your loyalty for dependency. They mistook your kindness for weakness. They mistook your patience for captivity. And when you proved them wrong, their entire internal script went up in smoke. You broke their control system in the most humiliating way possible by giving them nothing to work with. No begging, no chasing, no explaining, no emotional meltdown they could use against you. Just silence and elevation. They tried to provoke you, but you stayed calm. They tried to guilt trip you, but you didn't bite. They tried to get a reaction, but you had upgraded past their reach. Their ego expected you to crumble without them. Instead, you flourished. They expected your world to fall apart. Instead, you rebuilt it stronger. They expected you to seek their approval. Instead, you forgot their role in your story entirely. And that's the part ripping them apart internally. You did not play the victim. You did not keep them relevant. You did not validate their fantasy of dominance. You became the main character in a story they can't access, influence, or rewrite. And now they're stuck outside the narrative, banging on the door like a denied extra in a movie that no longer needs them. Their control wasn't broken, it was exposed. You didn't escape their system, you outgrew it. And nothing terrifies them more than realizing you never needed them in the first place. Number 6, when their nerves finally snapped. A guilty conscience doesn't knock, it claws. The moment you stopped reacting, they started unraveling. Panic is the last stage before regret hits full force. They're not checking on you, they're checking if they still matter. Now pay attention, chosen one, because this is the part the universe loves to expose with theatrical precision. The panic has officially kicked in, and they're moving exactly how people move when the power dynamic flips overnight. They once walked around like puppeteers, now they're scurrying like exposed insects when the light hits. The panic is real, the panic is loud, and the panic is ugly. Look at how they suddenly appear at the weirdest times, typing those little "hey" messages at 1:17 a.m., pretending it's casual, just thinking about you. Yeah, right. What they really mean is, I can't tell what you're up to anymore and it's driving me insane. They used to read your emotions like an open book. Now you're a locked vault and they're losing their minds trying to guess the combination. And you're probably thinking, why are they suddenly everywhere? Why now? Why this desperation? Because silence terrifies people who once controlled the noise. They're out here interrogating mutual friends like detectives. Have you talked to them? Did they say anything about me? Do they seem different? Mutual friends are playing middleman while secretly enjoying the show. Imagine this. They're scrolling through your old posts like archaeologists searching ancient ruins for clues. Every caption becomes a prophecy. Every picture becomes a hidden message. Every like you get sends them into another spiral. They're reading into things that have nothing to do with them because losing access to your mind is the biggest punishment their ego ever received. And the subtle ones? Those are the funniest. Suddenly, they're liking pictures from 13 months ago, accidentally viewing your stories within seconds, leaving emoji comments as if that erases the disrespect. They think these crumbs look like sincerity. They forget you're not starving anymore. Then there are the dramatics, the ones who send long paragraphs so poetic they could win awards. Except every paragraph is just fancy guilt avoidance. I never meant to hurt you. You misunderstood me. I've changed. I've been thinking. They rewrite history like they're auditioning for the innocent role in a movie you're not watching. Every sentence is a confession disguised as clarity. Every apology is a performance with shaky hands behind it. But here's the delicious part. They all use the same tired script, the same manipulation tactics, the same emotional bait, the same guilt-tripping strategies, the same "I miss you" nonsense they once used to reel you back in. Except now, you're steel, you're silence, you're untouchable, and those tactics bounce off you like rubber bullets off armor. Imagine this. They're throwing emotional darts at a wall that doesn't even face their direction anymore. Every attempt hits the ground. Every strategy fails on contact. They're panicking because the tricks that once worked flawlessly now have the same impact as tapping on a brick wall. You don't even flinch. Your evolution stole their script. Your peace stole their power. Your silence stole their confidence. They're spiraling because they can't predict your next move, can't decipher your energy, can't manipulate your emotions, can't pull you back into their orbit. This panic isn't a compliment. It's evidence. Evidence that you were the backbone of their illusion. Evidence that your presence was their stability. Evidence that your absence is their consequence, and the universe is making them feel every second of it. Number 7. When you mutated into something they can't decipher. They wanted you predictable. You became untouchable. A rebirth doesn't announce itself. It walks in wearing the ashes of who you used to be. Their tactics didn't fail. They expired. Indifference is the final form of freedom. Here's the part their tiny, fragile egos can't compute. You didn't change. You didn't improve. You didn't glow up in that cute little social media way. You underwent a full-blown metamorphosis, the kind that rewires a person from the inside out. The version of you they controlled, predicted, manipulated, and fed on. That version didn't survive your evolution. It died quietly the day you realized your peace was worth more than any person who treated you like emotional furniture. Imagine this. A caterpillar crawls for half its life, slow, quiet, stepped on, ignored. Then one day it disappears into a cocoon. Everyone assumes it's resting, healing, getting over things. But inside that cocoon, everything dissolves, everything transforms, and when it comes out, the whole landscape must adjust to its wings. That's you. They thought you were healing, you were mutating. You're probably thinking, why does my new energy feel so disconnected from everything that used to drain me? Why don't I care the way I used to? Why does their chaos feel like background noise now? Because indifference isn't numbness, it's clarity. It's the moment you realize someone's existence no longer registers as a threat or a loss. It's not cold-hearted. It's self-preservation polished into mastery. Your metamorphosis broke their system. They expected to return to an updated version of the same person. Instead, they returned to find a stranger with a completely different emotional code, someone they can't manipulate, someone they can't provoke, someone they can't bait into reacting. And here's the part that really slices their pride open. You're not angry, you're not bitter, you're not wishing them karma, you're indifferent. Indifference is the final blow because it says, you no longer exist in my mental universe. No hatred, no longing, no emotional echo, just silence, just distance, just the pure, unbothered freedom of someone who stepped out of the cage and didn't look back. You became something they have no reference point for, something that doesn't respond to their tricks, something that doesn't fall for the same emotional traps, something that makes their old strategies look like children's toys scattered on a battlefield you've already outgrown. This wasn't change. This was rebirth. And the new you is someone their old self was never built to handle. Number 8. When your success became their silent punishment. They didn't clap when you were crawling. Now they're standing on chairs trying to see how high you've climbed. Nothing exposes fake loyalty faster than your rise. Your glow-up wasn't revenge, but it sure looks like it. Here comes the part that hits their ego like a metal bat. They're watching you rise, not imagining it, not guessing, not assuming, watching in real time, watching the very person they dismissed, underestimated, ghosted, mocked or wrote off, suddenly take off like they were never the obstacle to begin with, and trust me, it's frying their circuits. You know why the energy shifted so violently? Because your elevation stripped their excuses naked. When you were struggling, they labeled you a lost cause. When you were quiet, they assumed you were finished. When you were drowning inside your own exhaustion, they didn't just abandon ship. They pushed the boat farther away. Back then, you weren't a desirable ally. You weren't a profitable investment. You weren't someone worth standing beside. But the universe loves dramatic irony. Imagine this. You've been climbing the mountain alone, bleeding, slipping, choking on the cold air. They stood at the bottom, pointing out every reason you wouldn't make it. Now they look up and can barely see you through the clouds because you're that high above them. That's why their neck hurts. They've been looking up non-stop. Another image. They left you in the dirt, thinking you'd rot. Instead, you rooted, you grew, you tore through the ground and became a tree they now want shade from, a tree they didn't water, didn't support, didn't care for. Now they stand beneath your branches pretending they always believed in your potential. You're probably wondering, why are they coming back now? Why do they suddenly care? Why do they want access when they ignored my existence during the hardest chapters? Because people with insecure egos are allergic to witnessing someone they underestimated rise without their help. Your success forces them to confront a truth they've been avoiding. They were wrong about you. They misjudged you. They treated the main character like a disposable extra. Your rise is the one thing they can't manipulate, minimize, or twist. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't argue. It doesn't need validation. It just shines, and every inch of that shine reveals how small they were in your story. They're not drawn to you because they've changed. They're drawn because your elevation exposes their stagnation. Your glow makes their shadows louder. Your growth makes their excuses embarrassing. Your confidence makes their arrogance look like cheap costume jewelry. Now they want front row seats to the show they refuse to audition for. Now they want access to a world they abandoned. Now they want to stand beside success they never believed was possible. But here's the brutal reality. They're only watching, and that's all they're ever going to do. Number 9. When the game reset and you became the one holding the controls. Second chances without change aren't compassion, they're self-sabotage. Access to you used to be free. Now it's invitation only. If they wanted the old rules, they should have respected the old you. Here's the part that makes your enemies choke on their own pride. The rules have changed, and this time you're the one writing them. No more letting people stroll back into your life like it's a revolving door. No more accepting apologies that sound like recycled lies. No more rewarding disrespect with another opportunity to hurt you. You've upgraded your boundaries, and anyone who wants a seat now has to pass security clearance first. Imagine this. You used to run your life like a public park. Anyone could walk in, leave their trash, trample the flowers, and disappear without accountability. Now you run it like a private island with guards, gates, and entry requirements. Not because you're cold, but because you finally realized you were letting tourists treat your soul like a cheap vacation spot. You're probably thinking, what if they've changed? What if they're sincere? What if letting them back in proves I've healed? Healing doesn't mean letting people repeat history. Healing means you no longer let people access you at the level they abused. If they truly changed, they won't be offended by your boundaries. They'll respect the new rules because they understand why the old ones failed. Anyone upset that you're no longer easy to access is someone who benefited from your lack of boundaries. Let's get even sharper. They used to treat forgiveness like a reset button. They'd hurt you, disappear, return with watered-down excuses, and expect the world to look exactly how it did before the damage. But the version of you they manipulated didn't survive your evolution. Your forgiveness isn't cheap anymore. Your energy isn't unlimited anymore. Your presence isn't guaranteed anymore. Imagine someone trying to enter a locked building with an old key. They keep jamming it in, twisting it, getting frustrated, insisting it should work. That's them now. They keep trying old tactics, old tricks, old sweet talk, old manipulation. But the locks have changed. The codes have changed. The system has changed. Worst of all for them, the owner has changed. And now here's the fact that stings them the most. Access to you is no longer a right. It's a privilege that must be earned, a privilege not everyone deserves. The rules changed the moment you did, and they can either evolve to meet the new standard or stay outside the gates forever. Number 10. When the universe started collecting what they owed. Revenge is loud. Karma is surgical. You didn't punish them. Life did. Your glow-up was the karma they never saw coming. The universe doesn't forget debts. It just waits for the perfect moment to cash them in. Here's the part that feels almost poetic, almost cinematic, almost too perfectly timed to be coincidence. Karma is doing all the heavy lifting while you sit there unbothered, glowing, leveling up, completely uninterested in their downfall. You didn't have to expose them. You didn't have to clap back. You didn't have to embarrass them. The universe took the wheel like, relax, I got this. And what's happening now? They're choking on the consequences they earned with their own hands. Imagine this. Someone throws a boomerang, laughing, certain it'll never come back. Then, months later, it smacks them in the back of the head while you're across the field drinking water, minding your business. That's karma. Quiet, efficient, deadly accurate. You're probably thinking, do I even care what happens to them anymore? Should I feel bad? Should I be checking in? No, because karma isn't punishment. It's balance. It's a mirror held up by the universe, showing them the reality they tried to project onto you, and you're not involved in their lesson. You're not the teacher, you're the example. Your peace is louder than any argument you could have made. Your happiness is brighter than any revenge you could have plotted. Your indifference is sharper than any insult they threw at you. And here's the knife twist. They're watching you rise, knowing they'll never experience that version of you again. They're watching you laugh, knowing they're not the reason anymore. They're watching you glow, knowing their shadow no longer dims anything. They're watching you win from the outside, forehead pressed to the glass, realizing they locked themselves out. Imagine them scrolling through your achievements, smiling photos, quiet upgrades, noticing the peace in your eyes that wasn't there when they were around. That's the moment karma hits. Not with fire, but with clarity. They lost access to the energy that healed them. They lost access to the loyalty that protected them. They lost access to the presence that elevated them. And that loss, permanent, unrecoverable, undeniable. Karma took your silence and turned it into a sentence. Karma took your distance and turned it into a lesson. Karma took your glow and turned it into a reminder. And the reminder is brutal. You moved on. You leveled up. You found peace, and they're not part of any of it. You didn't have to lift a finger. The universe handled the rest. Number 11. When the spotlight finally turned to you. This isn't revenge. This is your era. They didn't lose you. They lost access to the version of you that would have saved them. Not every chapter deserves a sequel. Your new life can't be built with people who tried to break the old one. Here's the unfiltered truth. This is your season, not theirs. Not the ones who doubted you, not the ones who left you, not the ones who treated you like an understudy in a story you were born to lead. This moment, right here, the clarity, the elevation, the calm, the power, belongs to you alone. They feel it. They smell it. They can practically taste the shift in the air, and that's why they're trembling behind closed doors, replaying every mistake like a horror movie they can't pause. Let them argue about who should apologize first. Let them panic. Let them overthink. Let them suffer in the silence they created. Deep down, they know the truth. They lost you, not by accident, not by fate, not because of a misunderstanding, but because they mistook your loyalty for permanence. They gambled with someone rare, someone irreplaceable, someone who actually cared, and the universe handed them the bill. And you're probably thinking, should I feel bad? Should I soften? Should I go back? No, because honoring your transformation means protecting your peace like it's sacred. You're not resurrecting dead connections just because someone suddenly feels nostalgic. Nostalgia is not loyalty. A miss you text is not growth. A long apology paragraph is not proof. Some doors deserve rust. Some bridges need to stay ashes. Some people are better as lessons than as recurring characters. Imagine this. If a snake sheds its skin, it doesn't crawl back inside it because it feels familiar. That's what going back would be, trying to fit into a version of yourself that no longer exists. They're tugging on memories, on old emotions, on old versions of you, because that's the only version they could control. They don't want the new you, they want the one they underestimated. But that version died, so the real you could rise. And rise you did, with standards, with clarity, with boundaries sharp enough to make the whole world adjust. This is your season to be selective, to be protective, to be unapologetically selfish with your energy. You're not the caretaker of other people's insecurities anymore. You're not the emotional first responder, cleaning up messes that weren't yours to begin with. You're not the open door people wander in and out of on their worst days. You walked away. You changed the rules, you shifted the power, you broke the cycle, and now they're switching sides, not because they've grown, not because they finally understand your worth, not because they learned their lesson, but because your energy evolved into something they can't manipulate, can't predict, and can't stand against. Your rise exposed their weakness, your peace exposed their guilt, your confidence exposed their fragility. They're not coming back out of love, they're coming back out of fear. Fear of the new you, fear of your standards, fear of being erased from a life that's finally blossoming without them. This is your season, your moment, your era. And the universe isn't asking you to share it with anyone who tried to dim your light. Let them switch sides. You're too busy switching levels. And now that we've dragged every hidden truth into the light, there's only one way to close this chapter. You keep rising, and they keep choking on the silence you left behind. This is your era, your power surge, your untouchable momentum. Nobody can steal what you became in the dark. If you felt this in your bones, hit that like button, subscribe so you never miss another drop of real villain-level wisdom, and drop 77 in the comments to claim this season as yours. Share this with someone who needs the reminder. Your energy rewrote the whole game.